when you do case studies like that and give them a story, like you said, it allows you, the prospect, a customer, to see themselves in that situation and say, I also have that problem. It's a way of serving up the problem solution without like the fear mongering that comes with marketing.
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Hasiotis, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Bridget Poetker. Bridget is the Director of Content Brand at Postal.io, a company that you should have heard of by now, and was previously a digital marketing manager at BitTime Software and a content marketing and SEO team lead at G2. Bridget, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, before we get started with all the very interesting things that I would like to discuss with you today, can you please share a few things about you, your background, and what has brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, I am Bridget. I find myself now at a company called Postal. It's a offline marketing engagement platform. Think like direct mail and swag and all the logistics that have to do with anything offline marketing. We handle all of that kind of stuff with tech and with our partnerships. So what got me to Postal? I started at Postal in November of this last year. So I've just been there almost 9 months, but 9 months in tech is like 3 years, right? Before that, I was at Big Time, which is a Chicago company. That's where I'm based. It's a billing and it's like a billing software for anybody with billable hours. So not MarTech, which is why I found myself back at Postal. I came from G2, as you mentioned before that, and that was really my first kind of insight into tech. And I love MarTech, like selling to marketers, because I'm a marketer and like that's the way my brain works. So really passionate about that space in particular. Before G2, I worked at an ad agency for 3 years. So I got a lot of experience with content in a lot of different forms and building out programs for a lot of different industries and how it can be different for one industry to the next, and how, you can have a framework and a playbook, but it's not necessarily transferable for every single, especially, G2 being a marketplace and doing the SEO kind of things that we did there were amazing, but how much of that can I actually bring over to the next kind of SaaS company? And we can get into all of that, but yeah, kind of a diverse background. I think agency to tech is pretty normal. I think journalism to content in tech is pretty normal too. So just kind of followed along. Tech now for 5 or 6 years, which is crazy. I mean, pandemic again, I go back to like, that's been 5 years by itself, right?
When people like ask me in interviews, like if there are any junior marketeers who listen to this episode and want to know where they should get started, I always say you should go work at an agency. I think there is no better way to get your hands dirty and
Totally.
really understand, as you mentioned, like see the game from all these different standpoints. And you had this experience for 3 years, which is, I guess, a lot
Yeah.
in the agency world.
Yeah.
But also G2 must have been very, I don't know, exciting, because back then, I don't follow the company as much nowadays, but back then you were very focused on SEO,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, when I started joining G2, the content team, when I first joined, I think I was the 7th employee, and 2 months later, our content team had 30 people on it, which is crazy. It's bigger than HubSpot's content team, like, to think about that. But that's really what we were trying to build. Like, we knew that as a mark as the product being a marketplace for software, like what we needed was traffic. And how did we do that? Really, we had kind of two buckets for that. We had the product led side of the SEO with the category pages and all of that stuff, but even up the funnel further, trying to build authority in all of these different software categories. So trying to figure out and building those programs from literally scratch, like, for the first 6 months, I was writing about app development, which I thought was hilarious because I'm like, I went to advertising school. Um, but you learn so much. And I think realizing like we really figured out the SEO content game, I think, in SaaS pretty quickly, and figured out what works and learned how to double down on the things that did work. And then for a while there, we were just creating a lot of content. I think every writer was doing 10 pieces a month. So that's just internally, that's almost 300 pieces of content a month, which is crazy. But then I think, a year and a half in, we're learning, okay, how much of this, like, we probably need to have a subset team for content pruning and optimization. And, we can't just continue to create more content. Let's look at what's actually working. So I got to build out a little team for that, and kind of do more of the after publishing, but also the pre-publishing, like figuring out keyword research wise and all that stuff, like what search intent, and figuring out like how many articles do we need in this cluster and that kind of stuff. So it was really robust program. I think that's the most robust content program I've ever been a part of. And it was really good.
I have discussed with different people from that team at G2. And I also had a discussion with the person who led the team, who was Kevin Indig. And so I always get different details of how things were working back then. And I'm always impressed, not only by, the growth in terms of traffic, keywords, and so on, but also operationally, how this thing, like how the team was able to scale as fast and as quickly, and at the same time how you were able to work as efficiently and develop processes and workflows and so on and so forth. So I think it's one of the best case studies when it comes to organic growth, specifically for SaaS companies. But fast forward a few years, and now you're at Postal. Can you please share a couple of things about the product and let us know who gets the most value by using Postal?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, Postal is an offline marketing engagement platform. We help automate a lot of the logistics, time-sucking logistics of direct mail and swag and any kind of like offline outreach. I mean, I think we were talking about it earlier, but steak dinners to make a sale have always existed. But how do you do that in a remote world? You can still send personalized gifts and that kind of stuff. You don't necessarily need their address if you have an email address. So the platform that we've built really takes out a lot of the like sourcing, sending, packing. Like we connect you directly to the smaller local vendor. That, it's more impactful if somebody wants to send me coffee from my coffee shop down the street versus a Starbucks gift card or something like that. So we're really encouraging specifically ABM programs to get a little bit more targeted with their outreach offline as well as online. And I think having both of those together in an omni-channel kind of strategy lets you stand out further in the sales process and the sales cycle, spend more time and attention on the prospects that really matter. So there's a lot of different use cases, but I would say the biggest one is pre-sales and sales velocity for SaaS companies right now.
Okay. Thank you very much for explaining. Now, I took a look at the website, and I saw that you promote, as I understand it at least, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but you promote the term offline marketing automation or offline marketing engagement. And it seems to me like the fact that you try to let's say use this term as a vehicle, it seems to me like, Drift trying to evangelize the term conversational marketing back in
Yep.
2015. I would like to hear from you whether you see any common characteristics between Drift's case with what Postal is trying to do with
Yeah.
offline marketing automation, and if yes, would you say that offline marketing automation or engagement is a new category?
Yeah, I think back to what we were just saying before, this thing, offline marketing has always kind of existed. We just never really had something to call it direct mail, but like we think direct mail is a little narrow for what Postal does. People think direct mail, they're thinking like a postcard or something, not there's no gift, right? But we also don't want to go by gifting because we feel like that's kind of narrow as well. So that's how we came up with offline engagement, offline automation. I was fighting to not have it be offline marketing automation for my SEO brain, being like, we're going to have to fight with every single person doing doing marketing automation, whether we add offline or not. Like for search, that's not good for us, right? Like I don't want automation. I think it's important to talk about because it explains what we do, but really it's more of an engagement tool. And yeah, it is a new category. I think we definitely have some competitors in this space. Of course, everybody calls themselves something differently. But we also have different capabilities than each other. So nobody really is a direct apples to apples comparison. But what drifted with conversational marketing is exactly, I think, just cookie cutter, great case study for category building. And I think specifically with SEO, there are places, and the good part is I have content and brand, right? So I have half of an SEO brand and then half of like, how do we brand it as the category? I think we just have to be really specific about where we use what terms. So yes, we want to rank for offline marketing automation if we're trying to win the category name and get the category name out there more and be really specific about when we use that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going after corporate gifting, direct mail, swag store, like those kinds of keywords, because it's important, especially in search, to meet your users where they are. And if they're calling you corporate gifting platform, they still want Postal. So I'm still going to go find them and get them onto the website, whether they're calling it offline marketing engagement or not.
I understand. I have, a couple of questions. I don't know which one to ask first. It seems to me that some of the use cases that you just described are close to what we generally refer to as promotional products, which is an industry that exists for many, many years. It's, a traditional industry. I think it has a market cap of 26 billion or something like that. And it's quite saturated as well, with over 20,000 distributors in the US alone. I would like to know whether you feel that for some of our use cases we compete, let's say, with SaaS companies, and at the same time, like, do you think that for an industry that is as traditional as the promotional products one, you have uncovered opportunities that most of these companies were missing?
Yeah, I think the beauty of a Postal is that we really are the middleman between the SaaS company that's trying to do any kind of offline something, whether like let's just take swag, because that's what most of the promotional product kind of agencies and all that stuff do, right? So we're the middleman between that, so that you as a SaaS company don't even necessarily have to, usually what happens is, okay, we have an automation system to do that, but the SaaS company is still having to talk to the vendor directly, get that stuff shipped to the warehouse, get it in the product, but like we'll handle that relationship too. So we're trying to kind of synthesize and condense all of the relationships between the vendors, between and any vendor. So like if you want to swag, if you want to send a branded coffee mug with a curated kind of coffee bean, like you can do that on Postal because it's all in the same, it's coming from the same warehouse, right? So giving people, I think, more flexibility to do that. But I think too, like the beauty of it is we have a concierge team that if you want to do a branded box or something like that, they'll go find the best vendor to do that with. They'll go work with them. We'll even take a vendor that you have worked with before and bring them onto the product. So I think alleviating even the relationships that you have to build with all these different types of vendors really helps alleviate a lot of the logistics of it. But yeah, I think it's an interesting place to be in the middle and to kind of just be the connection piece. But there are so many logistics in there that keep people from doing promotional items, keep people from doing any kind of swag, because it's a headache almost always, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I have received in my life, I don't know, 3 or 4 packages with branded swag from companies like AHS, shameless plug, the sponsor of our podcast. But the truth is that I don't know, I feel happy every time I
Right.
receive this box.
Well, I
Yeah,
think it's a brand experience, right? That's what we're trying to push, is like, this is a way to have a real life relationship with prospects and customers, and like come off in a space, especially that's not crowded, because there's not a lot of companies that do this.
yeah. Okay, it makes sense now. It makes more sense now. The second follow-up question that I have was regarding the fact that, okay, let's assume that this is a new category. Then the question is, from a con perspective, how do you educate people that, because in my mind, this is kind of like a vitamin and not a painkiller. Like
Mm-hmm.
people, even a sales rep doesn't really know that what I need at this point is Postal, because I've been used to like schedule 1,000 cold emails through the cold email tool that I use and so on. So how do you go about educating all these different verticals and industries about, you know what, there is a different way of doing things?
Yeah. I think there's kind of two directions here. I think it's really important that we have technology that plugs into all of the outreach tools that you're already using, right? And tracking tools. So I think that's the other piece that we haven't talked about yet, is the actual ROI of this stuff compared to, just a cold email with no kind of offline component at all. So we can see those things back, like side by side. It connects to Salesforce, connects to like all the way through to SalesLoft, outreach, like anything that your team is using to send out will integrate with, so that it makes it easier to just include it in things that you're already doing, instead of having to like build an entire new program for that. So I think that's really important, because I think it alleviates the like, I never want the customer to make them feel like they're not doing something, like stupid for not doing something that they should be doing, right? It's, no, you could just try this a different way. Um, it, it makes it a little bit, it's an easier approach to offline than I think is historically the case. But um, getting people to do offline at all is hard, because as marketers, and I was taught everything was going to be digital. I would never have to do anything offline. And then everything offline is always, you're sitting there packing boxes and sending swag to corporate events, and like all this stuff is just always a pain in the ass. And how do you convince people like, oh, it doesn't have to be a pain in the ass anymore? But okay, like how do you get people to actually do it? And it's showing them how easy it can be to do it. So I think that's kind of both sides of it. But I think you're right. But when you said vitamin versus painkiller, it's like showing them the actual results really helps too. And being able to actually tie back and attribute revenue to offline is really important. It's important for any demand gen channel. Like, especially with recession times right now, we're seeing it all across the board. Like, I'm very passionate, but we don't have to do everything. We just have to do a few things really well. And that comes to demand gen channels too. Like, we're seeing really good results in organic right now. So we pulled money out of paid spend, and we can use that money now to go sponsor more newsletters, get some more event sponsorships, like do things that are more bottom middle of funnel than just spending our money on paid search.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, as like my understanding is that as marketers, let's say, it's not that we will always choose the easiest thing to do, but especially when it comes to offline, if you don't know that there is another way, it's the easiest thing to do to say is that, you know what, like I can send 100 emails right now. I don't need anything at all. I don't need,
Yep.
to sign up for a product or do anything at all. But maybe what's needed in a case like this is to really educate people and let them know that, as you mentioned, like, it doesn't have to be that way, because
Yep.
you can do it
Yeah.
far. Yeah.
And I think that's too why I there's no ill will between our competitors. There's not, because I'm like, we're all just trying to lift this space up, and then we're gonna win for our technology and our partnership. Like when we get into those evaluations and that kind of stuff. But I think just creating a category, you need your competitors to also be creating the category. You all have to be in that one together.
I agree with you. And I don't know. I was watching an interview, I guess, and they were discussing at some point about Uber vs Lyft, and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that Uber was doing okay, but it really took off when Lyft came into the game, and so things started to change, and it started to really pick up then. And I think that, if anything, competition is a good thing, because it, as you mentioned, like, it helps you, like, evangelize this
Yeah.
new category and make it known. And at the same time, it 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 is going to inevitably push all the companies in this category, in this space, to become better.
Yep.
Technology, at
Exactly.
marketing, at brand, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned SEO content, and I would like to connect that to content strategy a bit and shift gears. And I would like to know your thoughts on content for a search audience. Now, obviously, this is part of your strategy, but I would like to hear whatever you can share with us, of course, about how you approach content that's targeting search engine users.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously coming from G2, having the every resource at my disposal, right? You talked a little bit about the operations, but it was always like if we needed to shift, we were able to do it. We Because we had so many people, like we were able to 80% stick to what our strategy was, because that's how content strategy goes. You kind of have to keep doing what you've been doing in some version. But we also had this like little experimental team that was really awesome. And obviously, with when you have a content team of, I'm not even counting myself fully, I'm half. I have one person full time on the content team. So the strategy has to be completely different than what it would be even if you had four writers, right? So we focus for search mostly on creating um, landing pages for middle and bottom funnel for targeted keywords, like really specific. And we started with a list of software keywords, so platform, technology, anything that has that kind of modifier on it around a specific campaign. We use Demandwell to do all of this kind of keyword research and stuff with us. But so we've seen, I think we've launched 45 pages with them since March, and our search impressions have gone up like 3x. Our pipeline has 4x from organic. Like it's been crazy. I knew that I the learning that I took away from G2 was that we can build all of this traffic with a lot of writers, but we weren't necessarily converting a lot of it. And as a small content team, and anybody at a small startup, like your main objective is to build pipeline. That's how you stay, especially as a brand team too. Like I'm trying to tie brand and content to dollars and revenue. I have to start at the bottom of the funnel, in the middle of the funnel, and pipeline. So not using our blog to write what is offline marketing automation from an SEO perspective. We still write that blog, but it's more from our brand voice and what we think about our products, less about the keywords and that kind of stuff, because there really aren't any when you're building a category. You're kind of making them up anyway. But as far as SEO, we really focus on more conversion landing pages versus blog content and like traditional content marketing.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. But, like, as my understanding is that, and I would like to hear your thoughts on that, not just for Postal, but in general. I mean, you you don't believe that content for a search audience should be, all there is. Like, there should be a mix, ideally, of content for the search audience with
Yes.
content like original content and product focused content and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the way that G2's team was built, obviously we had a marketing team of 50. So we were all kind of on different channels. Our channel was Google, right? Like that was our Google and social. But now, as content, like thinking about content in general, like I have to think about, okay, how does our content help the product marketing team? How does our content, like, how do we become the content team for our internal marketing team and our sales team, as well as distribution across different channels? And now my mindset is more that Google is a distribution channel for our content. It's not necessarily our end all be all of things. It's great if we show up there. I want to have as many doors to our website as possible. I don't necessarily do our attribution and our metrics, our KPIs are not around like this many leads came from this source. It doesn't matter to me. I want to start with really solid content ideas and then figure out how those things get distributed across the different channels. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. I like that. Connected to that, I guess, would be the question about promotion of the content, because okay, like you can create content and get it out there, but like, don't you have to promote it in order for the right people to see it? And I would like to know if, you know, owned media site like your email list or anything like that, if you do anything on the promotion side of things.
Yeah, we're starting to get there. I think the first step for us was figuring out what we needed to build content wise, and then distribution. We do a newsletter every quarter. It used to be monthly, and we just decided to make it's more for customers, I think. And that's another piece. Like a lot of our content is geared toward customers and more for customer success and helping this like use cases, things that are really actionable, that will help people, that helps with that education piece of like helping people use the product. It's not, it's kind of product marketing, it's kind of a piece of all of the above. But I think that if you really serve your customers well, prospects can also look at that stuff and understand that's how I could be using the product. And it creates like a FOMO effect on the front end. So I'm really passionate about creating like really good customer content, and figuring that out and then distributing. We do social, we do mostly LinkedIn, Twitter. We're still trying to figure out Twitter and how that all goes. But I really like, and I really like the HubSpot model of like, in the mindset of like, yes, we're going to rank in search, but if I have a marketing automation question, I'm going directly to HubSpot's blog. That's what we're trying to build. Is if you have a question about offline marketing, I want to make our blog searchable enough to the point where you can find what you're looking for and sales team can find what they're looking for, kind of self-serve everyone without having to go to a specific channel to find that information. I want to create that brand, that brand recognition behind that.
I think that's an interesting point, and especially the fact that what you mentioned about like the voice of the customer. And for example, I was taking a look at your website, and the things that immediately resonated with me were case studies,
Mm-hmm.
how this company managed to do X with by using Postal and
Mm-hmm.
so on. And I think that this is powerful because like it puts me in the position to say, okay, I don't know what this offline marketing automation thing is yet, but I can see the results and I can envision, let's say, my company achieving these results through
Right.
a solution like this.
Yeah, I think that's more just goes to our company's kind of values of it's not about us, it's about the customers. It's about making the customers comfortable doing the programs that they're running. However, we can help them do that. Like it's less about product promotion and all of that stuff. In those case studies, we talk about the product a lot, but the majority of it is about how Fivetran, how Dooley is using Postal to get these results. When you do case studies like that and give them a story, like you said, it allows you, the prospect, a customer, to see themselves in that situation and say, I also have that problem. It's a way of serving up the problem solution without like the fear mongering that comes with marketing. But I think too, on a distribution side, like that for us looks like we won't just link you'll link the case study on LinkedIn and say, read this case study. We'll run ads that have quotes from there. We'll pull the stats out of there and post those on social. Like getting specific about how people consume the content on the different channels that they're on, I think is the missing piece there too.
Yeah, and I like case studies and customer stories in general because they're, my understanding is that it's one of the best pieces of content to sell, but
Mm-hmm.
without selling. Like you don't
Mm-hmm.
sell, you just share the results. And would you like to be in that position, in the position of this company? Well, you can try this service or this
Right.
product.
Don't you want 3x your meeting rates? Of course you do. Like, hello.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as we're ready to wrap things up, I would like to know if, and what you can share with us. What's the next big thing on the horizon for Postal? Anything exciting that you can share with us?
Some things I can't share, some things I can share. We are expanding our product suite to encompass some more offline things that we have heard from customers. Like, okay, you have all of the pieces to do swag stores, right? You have the inventory part, you have the cart select, like you have everything. It's just not built into a product. So we're building that. So that's really cool. Like I think a lot of our product enhancements and those kinds of things, like we just launched a new marketplace I had mentioned earlier that went from a 15 click send flow to now 4. So it like cuts down the time, makes it easier to find things, more intuitive, more e-commerce like. Our product team is really good about talking to sales, talking to customer success. What are customers asking for? Like we have a really, really solid feedback loop. And that just helps us build a better product for our customers. Like the benefit to being in MarTech in general, but also a product like Postal is, yeah, I think marketing is probably the main ICP, but customer success is using Postal, HR is using Postal, sales is using Postal. So like we have all of the ICPs. We think we know what we want too, but it's really nice that like our customers in sales can talk to somebody in sales at Postal and is saying like, how wouldn't this be cool if, and then the sales teams bring that to product and they're like, hey, we should build this. So we have a product roadmap, obviously, but there's enough room in there to actually listen to what customers are asking for. And I think that's the best way to build a product is just around the customer, build it to their needs, especially in a new emerging category where like we want our customers to keep doing this. So how do we continue to make it easier from them is listening to the people that are actually doing it well. And we call them Postal Flyers. We started that program for the people that are just crushing offline. And like, those are the people, our early adopters program and like really getting customer centric, I think has helped us a lot.
Like super users, would you call them like this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That's a great way to wrap things up, I guess. So my last question and call to action for my listeners would be: where can people learn more about you and get in touch?
Yeah, LinkedIn is good. I'm on Twitter as well. And actually, my friend from Drift. It's funny that you mentioned it earlier. She was on the founding kind of the early team at Drift. Sarah Payan and I run. It was a podcast. Now it's a job board called Self Control and Cheese. If you know anybody looking for a job or hiring for a job, it like connects people's like the job description with your profile. So if you post a job and there's 4 people in our system that like would be a good match, it automatically gives that to you. So that's been really cool.
Okay, we will drop that in the show notes, and I would love to have Sarah Payon in the podcast as well. So maybe there will be an introduction.
I'll drop her a note. I'm sure she'd love it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So, Bridget, that was really insightful. I think that we talked about something that we don't, talk about very often here at the SaaS SEO Show. So I'm really sure that there is, value for people who are going to listen to this episode. Thank you very much, and who knows? Looking forward to another episode at the SaaS SEO Show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, George.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.